Did you know that there are only about 500 hectares of Mourvedre in the entire South African winelands? And yet, in the winemag.co.za minority report for 2025, 2 of the top 6 highest scoring red wines were 100% Mourvedre. And having tasted the entire lineup, I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to see an increasingly high quality wave of Mourvedre coming out of South Africa, even if the rest of the global wine industry seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. And with that, I welcome you back to the Handring Solo Wine channel, where we review curious wines for curious minds. Now, today's wine is a bush vine Mourvedre from the wine district of the Swartland, which you shouldn't be too surprised at, because of the 500 hectares that I just mentioned, almost half of those Mourvedre vineyards are in the Swartland. Now, even this fact makes sense, because Mourvedre, which is originally from Spain, but has also kind of made a big name for itself in the southern Rhone, thrives in these really hot, arid, low rainfall regions, especially when trained in a bush vine form, because they're kind of low to the ground, stress tested, sun soaked. I mean, that really is Mourvedre's dojo. Now, today's wine of the day is the Tarentaal Kwaal bush vine Mourvedre, made by Klein Amoskuil, which is an estate that has been part of the quiet but undeniable force that has been slowly redefining what we think of when people say the term Swartland red wine. And incidentally, when I tasted the 2023 vintage of this Tarentaal Kwaal Mourvedre in the minority report for 2025, I scored it right up there with the Beaumont Farside Mourvedre, another exceptional bottling. The Beaumont was the second highest scoring red wine in the entire competition. But aside from being delicious, this wine also gives us the opportunity to celebrate 2 characters on the SA wine scene. Firstly, Charl du Plessi, who's a soft-spoken, quiet, but incredibly thoughtful winemaker who has been crafting these amazing, textured, layered wines in the Swartland since he took over at Klein Amoskuil in 2001, and he kind of replaced a nobody winemaker called Ibn Sadi something. The other person that is worth celebrating is Charles Back himself, the owner of Klein Amoskuil, who also owns Fairview and Spice Route. I mean, his fingers are all over the South African wine scene. So Fairview, Spice Route, Klein Amoskuil, these are 3 brands that just sit within the broader Charles Back stable, I guess, which seems to perpetually be embracing bold wine ideas and keeping innovation alive on the South African wine scene. And long may that last. Almost 30 years ago, back in 1997, Charles Back bought an old forgotten tobacco farm in the Swartland, because in amidst the wheat fields and dry scrub, he discovered something remarkable: a wild, unkempt block of Sauvignon Blanc vines, which, as it turns out, was planted in 1965. We know this now as the Amos Block. It is the oldest Sauvignon Blanc vineyard in South Africa, and it's in the Swartland. Today, Klein Amoskuil not only produces a Sauvignon Blanc from the Amos Block, and also an absolutely fascinating bio-aged floor-style sherry wine from those same Sauvignon Blanc grapes, but also produces a Carignan Rosé, this Mourvedre, and a range of wines called Obscura, which are all fermented in these buried Georgian Quevri clay pots. But they've done a lot more than just tinker with pottery over the last 30 years. They are now fully organically certified as of 2022. They have roughly 100 hectares under vine, and the range includes Swartland red cultivar classics like Grenache, Mourvedre, Carignan, and of course the not so classic but beautiful nevertheless Amos Block Sauvignon Blanc. But as I'm sure you will have experienced many times, you can have organic certified wine made from trendy cultivars and still have it taste like a butt. So let's get into the glass and see what Charl has prepared for us. When we give this guy a sniff, well, we do get a little bit of Mourvedre moodiness, and Mourvedre is a cultivar not unlike Syrah that can have elements of meatiness and smokiness sometimes, and that's not necessarily oak or reduction. Sometimes that's just Mourvedre, but along with it there's some prettier elements as well. So you got touches of dry herb, but then you got lovely fresh clean blackberry fruit, black cherry, mulberries, and then probably the the best element of all, and every great Mourvedre should have a touch of this, a beautiful lift of floral violet elements. In fact, it may not totally be violet. Maybe it's more like a deep red rose. So not at all like Turkish Delight, but more like that deep, mysterious red rose that's almost black, and its aroma is far more intense than you might get from, say, a pink rose, if you're lucky enough to find roses that have a scent at all these days. Now, when we give it a sip, well, this palate is all theatre. You have some really quite arresting, almost like bitter licorice notes, and those are leaning up against these juicy, almost sour red cherry elements. And then you have black currant pastel notes and even ripe mulberry elements, which we smelt on the nose. And when it comes to tannins, Mourvedre can be an absolute beast. But thanks to the fact that this wine was made with quite a lot of whole bunch fermentation, which means that generally the wine was treated more gently, even though whole bunch also means that there's stems in there, which in themselves give tannins. The kind of more gentle winemaking style resulted in a slightly more gentle end wine. And so you've got fruit with just enough tannins to hold them upright, but nothing really monstrous. And then as the fruit begins to fade on the palate, you get an even further lift, I guess, a kind of almost citrus element that just pops out, joining the juicy cherry skins at the end there, and really leaves your mouth watering for that next sip. So for a cultivar that manages to be moody and kind of surly on opening, it manages to be delightfully inviting as it closes. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but I have left links to 2 videos, both of which will give you a little bit of a deeper understanding on some of the exciting changes in winemaking techniques that are unfolding amidst the red wines of the Swartland wine district.